Welcome back to the show, everybody. Welcome back to the Upper Tier Podcast. If you could subscribe, hit that bell notification button, drop a like on the video. If you're looking back at older videos, if you want, you can hit that hype button, hype stuff up, all that kind of stuff, all that good stuff, all that stuff that tries to break the algorithm of YouTube. Don't forget to join us tonight. Watch along. We'll be live from about 7:45. It's Belgium versus Egypt tonight is the offering on the watch along. Try to jump on to another little pro wrestling weekly video. This time we're going to talk about Danhausen. Hope you checked out the Finn Balor one. Gave my thoughts on that whole situation. Quite a passionate video, I would have said. But yeah, very jarring and very annoying at the way that whole King of the Ring is panning out. But we're going to talk about Danhausen, something a little bit more upbeat. And if you remember when we went back, when he was unveiled out of the crate, this ominous crate, and everyone was just so, oh God, what's this? You know what I mean? And it took off, and it grew legs, and it just hit the ground running. And you know, we know that CM Punk, who's very close to him, is a good friend of his, batted for him to come in and all. And what a decision it was by WWE and TKO to bring him in, because he has been a cash machine for them in terms of merchandise, in terms of draw value. Instead of spreading across multiple brands, we've seen the work he does on ESPN. We've seen the stuff with the Knicks. Now they're talking about the Fanatics Fan Fest. They're going to put something big together where they're going to have the Knicks there, the players, and Danhausen doing something big at Fanatics Fan Fest coming up. I think it's in July in New York. Absolutely phenomenal. And we've seen the reaction, you know, the cursing of the team, and then the lifting of the curse and all that kind of stuff. And you know, after a while you start to begin, I wonder, is there some truth to this Danhausen curse kind of stuff, you know? But the work he's done has been absolutely phenomenal, and he's one of the most watchable things, you know, apart from Trick. He's probably one of the most watchable things on SmackDown. Always brings a smile to people's faces. His ability on the moment to drop stuff in is phenomenal, really, you know. And the way he talks about himself in the third person. Remember how good this was back in the day for The Rock, when The Rock suddenly switched things up and started talking about himself in the third person. That's when he really started dropping those unbelievable promos and started developing into the megastar and huge star that he became, you know. And you can see that with Danhausen as well, that like the way he talks about Danhausen as if Danhausen is a totally different person to what's standing in front of you and stuff. And it's very, very cool the way he does it. But he seems to be able to have chemistry with anyone and everyone. He seems to be able to pivot and tangent at a moment's notice. Very dynamic in the way he delivers stuff. His timing is crisp. You know, and the funny thing about it is we don't even need him to throw a headlock on. We don't need him to lock up. We don't need him to give us a wrist lock. We don't need anything. We just need him doing what he's doing. And it's so impressive to see. And I'm sure for a lot of the wrestlers in there in the roster, you know, who can't find that kind of connection, you know, and who like bust their balls wrestling, who do every single move they can, who jump off every top rope and do every kind of flip and turn and kick and all that kind of stuff, and yet that connection lacks there. And you see Danhausen, it just has that connection with people. It's amazing to see how it evolved, and I think people knew how talented he was, because a lot of people were saying how AEW had dropped a massive ball on him when they had him in there, and they just didn't really use him. And now you can see with WWE, he's probably the highest merch seller at this stage. I know he was selling truckloads of merch Mania week because we were there. I think they said they had to restock 3 times with Danhausen merchandise Mania week. And I seen it firsthand. I was there and at the merch stands, just his gear, the amount of his gear walking around, the amount of his gear on those merch stands just flying out the door was amazing to see, you know. And of course I had my own reservations in the beginning as well, you know, because there's a kind of a hokiness to it as well. And we had spoke for months and months and months on the podcast about the Wyatt 6 and how it had become, you know, it didn't kind of fit the product. Because it just became a little bit hokey, and like, you know, you were getting 3 or 4 wrestling matches and then you were getting this little horror presentation, if you like, you know, that just kind of felt out of place on the show. But certainly with Danhausen, he certainly slots in seamlessly into the show, and without having to do literally any wrestling. I mean, most of the matches he's caught up in end up in some sort of a gimmick or a move, or, you know, something that lends himself to him picking up a win. The stuff he's doing with the Miz is electric. And I'm sure Miz, a lot of people talking about Miz and how Miz is this, that and the other. I'd say Miz is loving life with Danhausen at the moment. He's getting paid a truckload of cash as well for having to do very, very little, only show up to work and have a real good time, you know. And then we see it happened last week as well with Kit Wilson as well. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Kit Wilson now this week when he comes out. Are we going to get the Miz effect again? And it was cool, that vignette last week at SmackDown. It was kind of like, between that and Trick, it was the only two things really on the show that was worth tuning in for, to be honest. The rest was all kind of just lame ass, same old. But to see Miz and all, and Miz rolling out the old sayings and the old character and stuff like that and all, and the hair spiked up and everything and all, it's just, you know, sometimes it's nice when wrestling just puts a smile on your face. You know, we enjoyed it back in the day when DX used to do their comedy skits and stuff like that, and Edge and Christian and all. There's always room for that bit of comedy in there and stuff, you know. And funny enough, you know, not in talking with his stature, but like the comedy element of it and the character element of it is just larger than life, really, you know, isn't it? It just grew legs all of it, and it's all of it on its own, and it kind of became, dare I say, and I said it last week, I even said it on the SmackDown Motel when I jumped on for a few minutes, that I think it's nearly at the stage where it just needs its own show. You know, like, what did we say, Camp WWE, or the cartoon stuff they used to do back in the day, you know what I mean? You look at this Danhausen and this show, and it's like, this guy just needs his own show, and literally has it at this stage. You see him just walks onto the ESPN set, onto the desk, and just lets it flow. You see him at the Knicks games, he's going around demanding money off people to lift curses and all, and he's just so funny and so enjoyable, you know. So I just wanted to jump on, quick video, you know. I always say it on the podcast, it's okay to be wrong. Certainly I was wrong about this guy. You know, again, if you're a wrestling purist and you're just thinking in terms of wrestling, you can see why you kind of don't connect with it and stuff like that. And I would be one of those guys, but I think at a time where wrestling is going through, dare say, a tough time in terms of that connection with the fan base and stuff like that. It seems very disjointed, the fans trying to connect with stuff, and the stuff that we do connect with at the moment is kind of more of the same. So you get another version of the Bloodline, or, you know, you get a different change in the Vision, or you get the Judgment Day, you know, you're getting the same old that you're having to grasp at and stuff, you know. I think at a time when that's going on, I think it's good to have that bit of comedy in there that just brightens up the show and brightens up the mood and stuff like that, because especially with SmackDown, if you look at SmackDown at the moment, SmackDown's in the gutter at the minute, you know. So you know, when you have something like that on it just lightens the mood a little bit, and for that reason it's worth tuning into that segment and stuff. So I said it on the SmackDown Motel the other night, just give me 2 hours of fucking Danhausen at this stage, you know what I mean, because the rest is just pony bar Trick. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what he comes out with this week. But don't forget, join us tonight, folks, 8 o'clock. We'll be on from about 1:15 to Belgium versus Egypt. Should be a good game, plenty of talent on both sides. And let's see, can we keep this World Cup rolling at the moment. Hope you're enjoying all the watch-alongs. A few of you frauds last night let me down last night, you know what I mean, in terms of the views and stuff like that. We wanted to build on the views, so we took a little step back last night in terms of the views, but hopefully we'll make up for it tonight. I know people do be busy on a Sunday and stuff like that, and also Monday night, normally you will be joining us for the mashup. Not sure whether Marky's available or not, but we'll hit the watch along. Who knows, someone might jump on. But if they don't, you'll have me for 2 hours tonight from 8 o'clock. From 1:15 probably till close to 10 o'clock. Talk to you again real soon. Have a great day. It is Monday. Let's get the week starting properly. And make sure you're checking out all the other content on that, shorts, videos, all that stuff going up on a daily basis at the moment, plus your live shows and stuff. Make sure you check out the boys NBA show as well and give them your full support. It was was their first live last night in terms of doing an NBA show. They're going to be covering the draft, and then they're going to be covering most of next season as well. So get behind it and support it. If basketball is your flavour, we're always trying to expand on the upper tier and stuff like that. We're always trying to give you, you know, more and more stuff where we can. Sometimes we cover the Masters, sometimes Darren does a bit of tennis, you know, we do the wrestling, we do the football, which are our core kind of things. But if there's anything else you want us to cover and stuff like that, we can always look into and stuff like that. Because by nature the podcast, it doesn't have any limitations and stuff like that. So yeah, talk to you again real soon. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification button, drop a like on the video, and if you're looking for particular watch-alongs, most of them are up there for this week, so you can plan your week around those watch-alongs if you're planning on being with us. And make sure you hit the bell notification button as well, you know, in the actual video itself, because YouTube is a little bit fuckery at times with the way it does things. So not only on the channel, because sometimes the channel will alert you, and we could be 15-20 minutes into the show, so make sure you hit the bell notification button on the watch-alongs that you're planning on joining us for. And we'll talk to you again real soon. Cheers, have a great day.